Hiya, welcome today, a DVD player from Samsung. This is one from the very early 2000s, very late 90s. It's a Samsung DVD 709, and you can see on there it's a fairly sort of standard thing, box-like looking thing. Today I'm going to take you through this video player and we can have a look and see if we can get it working again. It was put aside 20 years ago and it was fine, and I got it out the other day and it wasn't, so let's see what we can do. It's got a universal power supply and it's a region 2 machine. We'll take this in stages and see where we go, and I'll put chapters in. This was one of the first low-cost, i.e. budget, DVD players, and you can see here, because it's region 2, that's quite important. All region 2 players can play NTSC and PAL discs because they are region 2, that's Japan and Europe, and Japan uses NTSC. Not all region 1 coded machines can play NTSC and PAL, so it's something to look out for. We've got left and right analog output, digital output, and we've got video out, and we've got S-video out. Carrying on down, then you got here the SCART output, which proves it's a European machine, and you've got the NTSC, CCAN, PAL switch, which is because of the region 2 coding. You have to have the ability to play it out in what your TV matches. Very few people had multi-standard TVs in those days. Interesting little hideaway for the UK plug there. Let's power it up and see what happens. So push the button and look at the display, and it says open and nothing happens. It goes clunk, bit of a whir, it says load, nothing happens, no disc, pain in the bum. Anyway, push eject, it says open and it makes a clunk clunk noise but doesn't do anything else. Really a pain in the bum. Let's turn it over and have a look at the bottom. There's an interesting little slot there. Now that slot is quite important. You can see there is a layer in there of something, and we'll get onto that in a second. The tray is opened by using the slot. The tray is opened by using the slot and putting a screwdriver in it, and then what you do is you move it to the left and it just pops the door slightly, then you pull it open gently. There you go, you can see where it's ended up, and that's with the tray open. Next section is getting the case off, because it's no good having the tray open because it's probably still not going to work. So we've got a few screws to remove on here, and we've got that bit on the front to remove as well, because the front panel is not going to come off unless you get that bit off the front of the tray. So if we've got a few screws on here, more than you'd expect on this sort of thing, to be honest. You've got a nice one in the middle there, and then you've got one on either side at the bottom, and you've got one on either side in the middle, which we'll see in a second. And yes, I should have been using a crosshead screwdriver, not a blade, but a blade was working and I didn't have a crosshead to hand. But anyway, carry on. If you used the cassette decks with just those 3 screws, this will be a bit of a surprise to you, because you've got the one on either side and you've got the one in the middle that you'd expect, but then on the back of the unit you've got a couple of other screws which I've already mentioned, but they are quite fiddly. There and there. Getting ready for the big reveal here, so if you've ever taken one of these off, you know how to do it. Otherwise, just watch you. All you do is you pull it back a bit, and that gives you a bit of a gap around the front, and you can't do anything else other than pull it back, because if you start pulling it up, you break things. So you pull it back until you've got a decent sized gap, and then you lift it straight up. As you can see, one hand is not quite so easy, but you just pull it straight up and clear. Here we go. Just like that. Now, having moved that, wow, look at that. It's the first time I've seen this, in actual fact, and there's a lot more in there than I was expecting. So we'll have a look at that. You can see where the UK plug socket holder is, nothing above it, so it's definitely just for putting empty plugs into. And looking at this, you can see there is an awful lot of printed circuit boards in here. We've got loads and loads of stuff. It's weird. I wasn't expecting anything like this amount of stuff. So on the front here you've got a tag, and to get the front panel off you're going to have to undo some cables which are there and there. So there's one either end, and to get those out you have to use a screwdriver, and then you've got to get the thing off the front of the drawer. Now that comes off by sliding it in an upwards direction. You just have to be careful and it will happen. And with these things you've got these tangs as well. You've got to pull the tangs off, otherwise the whole thing won't work. But having done that, look, we have success. I've reconnected the front panel and the drawer's going in and out, which is wonderful. But I will warn you now, don't be complacent. Just because it's working reliably now doesn't mean it'll work later. And a little bit of a spoiler alert, change the belt because it will fail. It needs a bit of lubrication down there and down there, which is a good idea. I used a silicone spray. Don't use oil. It's not a good idea to use oil. And that's a quick look of underneath. And yeah, there we go. Now, these boards are huge, but there's not an awful lot on them. I'm only assuming that because this was a first generation, it's got a lot of other stuff in it that wasn't necessarily needed. This is the actual drive. It had a panel on it which I've taken off, and there you can see that. And that's the laser assembly. It's all going to work in a minute, we hope. We're going to put the Alice in Wonderland DVD in, which is a region 2, and we'll see if that works. I'm hoping, because I haven't had the opportunity to try it at this point, and we push the buttons and see what happens. Fingers crossed. Load, load, load. Fingers getting stiff. Load, load, load. What's it going to do? What's it going to do? It's making the right sort of noises. It's doing the right sort of patterning. And it's going to, look, the little green light's flashing. Wonderful piece of kit there. A green light that tells you that everything is going so well. And then what's going to happen now? It's taking a long time. This is real time. Oh dear, look, it opened. Well, that's one success. The drawer did open. Unfortunately, it did not play the disc, but the disc has got some crap on it. So let's clear the disc up and we'll try again. Nice soft surface there. You know not to roll discs in a circular direction. You have to do them crosswise, otherwise you damage them more. And we put it back in and see what happens. Lights flashing and load and flashing. The disc, you can see, is actually spinning there. So we're so much further than we were originally. And it's still got the little loading symbol happening and the load lights are on and everything's doing its thing, and I'm pretty sure it's not going to work. At this point, I'm getting pretty certain it's not going to work because it should have made another noise by now. Let's see, what is it going to do? And it spits it out. Not a surprise really, I suppose. But let's try one more time and see what happens. And well, I'll save this for a little bit of suspense, I suppose. Is it going to work? This is the third time I have cleaned the disc again, and it may or may not work. It's looking, hasn't got the twiddly thing doing the circle anymore on the left hand side. It says play. It is playing. Wow. So that's pretty damn good, isn't it? How did that happen? I don't really know. See, it got us all keen there, and it actually wasn't playing. What it was doing was trying to play, and it failed. So I've had to take the thing much further down now, and we're trying it out. Now what I've done there, you can see there's a piece there that's been taken off the main drive, and I've cleaned the lens with some isopropyl alcohol, and it's started to play that. I think it's doing something. But the end result is not too good. Kind of long story short, what I've had to do is I've had to lubricate the weight, the magnetic clamp, with some lube, and after cleaning the lens and just using it for a while, it suddenly started to work. And I can prove that. The problem was that the magnetic clamp was dragging a bit heavily and was making it all a bit slow, so it wasn't responding in time, and that's what cleaning it up and using the lube did. This is the clamp in question. You can see where the yellow lines are is one section, and then you've got the orange is the other section. What they do is they clamp down on the centre and it starts to spin, but if it's got any sort of drag, because it's spinning within those bits of metal, it will slow down, and the whole thing really doesn't work that well. So give it a lube and off you go. With this unit, the remote control is quite important that you actually use that to change the regions. You can put it to universal, which is what I've got mine set to. I've loaded the Disney DVD and there we go. Oh look, it's got pictures, albeit from the menu, English subtitles or whatever that means. So that's bit's working. All I've got to do now is try it with something different. I started the disc from the beginning again, and here we go with the Disney introduction, and it's all working. And then it comes up with the various menus, which, considering it wasn't working at all, I'm pretty impressed with. So we go on to there, and you got the fast play and whatever else the Disney DVDs have on them. I must admit I watched this when it came out, and then I didn't really bother with it much afterwards, this particular disc, but it's very good. And alright, there we go. So it's into some of the promotions for some of the other films that are on the disc, and it's all working tickety-boo, 100%. It's rather nice. And now I'm playing Castaway, which is a Region 1 disc, and as you can see it just goes straight in, FBI warning. And this is because it's a Region 2 DVD player, because it has to be able to play NTSC via a PAL TV, and it does it beautifully. I've got a good collection of NTSC discs. There is a code for doing the remote control hack. It's something like open the drawer, press 1, 2, 3, 5. I don't know, you'll find it on some of the websites. It was up there 20 years ago, it's probably still up there, but I think you can see from this it's pretty good. The picture quality is well worth it. I mean, it's only SD. It has to be a good TV, but it's only SD because that's all that was available at the time. Flickering, you can see, is the difference between the camera and the TV, and isn't there in real life. So at the end of the day, it was good. The reason I didn't use it all the time was because we bought an HD TV and then we went to Blu-ray. But would I use it again? Yes. It was a good piece of kit, and with the all-world compatibility, it was well worth having. Anyway, I hope that's been of some use to you. If you'd like to subscribe, hit the like button, various things like that, it'll all be useful. And hopefully there's a couple of videos coming up soon that you might find of interest, and click on there and catch you another time. Cheers.